Hello, students. I want to talk a little bit about introducing paper number 2. So let's go over the assignment sheet. Paper number 2 is an annotated bibliography project. If you've never done one of these are pretty significant research projects. It's called a paper, but I'd hesitate to call it a complete paper. What it is you'll notice the requirements is that there's a 500-word introduction that summarizes your research findings. You're required to have 8 sources, and each source must be annotated for 150 words. So if you think about it, that's 500 words and 8 times basically 150 words, which I can't do the math in my head that easily, but it comes out to be about an 8 to 10 page project. So this is our research project. Your job is to basically pick a topic, something that is interesting. It doesn't have to be something that's super controversial. So you don't have to pick a super polarizing debate, but pick something that does have some controversy to it or some arguments within it. And again, it could be factions of argument. It doesn't have to be this black and white, two-sided thing. So you'll notice here, you pick a topic that you want to learn about, not something you already are invested in that you have a firm stance on. My example I give here, if you're adamantly vegetarian and animal rights activist, you might not want to pick animal rights or animal testing. You pick something that you're curious about. Like maybe you've heard a lot in the news about the opioid epidemic, for example, but you don't know much about it. And so your job in this research project will be to read and view these 8 sources, understand the topic from that angle. This is not an argument paper. In a lot of ways, this is a project that allows you to do the research, put together some information about each of these articles, and then summarize what you found in the research. So this is what the project looks like. First of all, there's an intro to the project. Now, what I tell students is to write this introduction last, which sounds really crazy, but the introduction isn't an introduction for somebody who has never researched this topic before. It's not this is exactly what immigration is. For example, maybe you pick immigration. This is a more complicated introduction. So it's a summary of your research findings. What I'd like you to do here is not take sides or state your opinion, but you should report what you found on the topic. Things to include would be the history of the issue, major stakeholders, different positions, perspectives from people of different lived experiences. So, maybe again, I use the example of the opioid epidemic, right? Maybe the different lived experiences you get is somebody in like rural America versus urban America on the opioid epidemic. Or maybe you find out you found a really interesting article that talks about the differences in gender in the opioid epidemic, and that's interesting. Recent breakthroughs or the future of the topic. So where is this going? All of these things are really great things to look into. So that's your introduction. It's kind of a 2.0 introduction. It is a summary of your findings. And you cannot and you should not write this until you've completed your annotated bibliography and read all your research, okay? So even though it's the first part of your project, it's the last thing you should write. So every source needs to have a citation and annotation. Okay. So every source, so for 8 of them, that'll be kind of the format is you have the introduction, citation, annotation, citation, annotation, citation, annotation. And you'll do that 8 times for your 8 sources. So the citation, there's a video on MLA format here. There's information in the back of your textbook. There's some resources here on Purdue's Online Writing Lab. So you have a lot of resources on MLA. The annotation, there's another video again on the annotation, but the annotations for each source, you will write a minimum of 150 words. You will first summarize the article or book or documentary that you have. You're going to next evaluate it. So you're going to decide why it's credible, and you're going to tell us why it's credible. It could be that the author has written a bunch on the topic. It could be that it's in a really credible publication. You have to have reasons there. The idea is that each of these sources represents the best things you can find on this topic, and that you're about the area of your annotation where you evaluate your source basically tells your readers that. And then finally, you want to contextualize the source as it fits into your research. So I ask, how is this source helpful to you? How can you use this source in your research project? How does it fit with the other sources? Does this source fill any holes? Give concrete details. So again, one of the things, and this kind of goes with the final thing that this assignment sheet says, is I want sources that say different things. So it could come at it from different sides, right? Maybe it takes different positions. It could talk about somebody's personal experience with the topic. It could come from a corporate source or a government source. It could also, be an explanation of the future of the topic. It could also give some history on the topic. So your sources shouldn't all say the same thing. They should all say something different. And this is in the contextualization space of your annotation. This is where you say, this is why I needed this source, right? This is how it fits with the other sources. This is what it does different from the other sources. This is why I need this source in my research project. So that's the idea, is that you've told me that these annotations are for each source. So this is what this looked like. So in Canvas, there's a sample. And especially for this paper, I want you all to make sure you look at this sample. Okay, so this sample has an introduction essay, right? It's actually a shorter introduction than what I'm asking you guys to do. So the sample is not perfect. It's in an earlier version of MLA. So this was written a couple years ago, and MLA changed, so that should look different. But the annotations are what I want you to look at for this. So if you'll notice, this is for one source, right? So this is the citation, and this underneath is the annotation. And that's almost like one page for each annotation. She was really, really thorough. So her annotations are actually longer than 150 words. Yours don't have to be longer than 150 words, but they need to do the job. So going through this sample paper and really noticing the annotations and reading through them as examples, I think those would really help you understand what I'm looking for in the annotations, as well as the annotation video. This paper also gives you a sense of what this paper should look like. A lot of students have a hard time understanding what this paper looks like. Again, introduction, and then 8 sources annotated. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this student, as a formality, she put a new annotation on each page. You don't have to do that. You can just do one after the other, but this is what it should look like. So this should give you a good idea. Throughout Project 2, you'll watch other videos. So on MLA and on annotations, and then there's one more forthcoming on the library. So definitely use those as resources. I tell students the videos I create, while boring, might, if you're stuck or you're lost, watch it again. So that is the introduction to assignment 2. So make sure you're thinking about what you want to write about, what topic you want to do, and we're going to work out that stuff in this discussion board coming up. So have a good rest of your day. Thank you.